that is, but it sounds great. Hello, welcome to the Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to Stream Streak Day 98. That's correct.
Wow.
98. Yeah, that's that's flown by. I think this is, by the way, our like 7th or 8th show together. Like maybe it's our 8th show together, which I'm over the moon about. I'm joined today by the wonderful members of the 40k Adjacent show. Val, the Heffelfinger himself.
That's the Heffelfinger right there.
And down below me is, but morally, physically, spiritually, and intellectually far above me, is Peter the Falcon Calissimo. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing great. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. I've got a tiny bit of backache.
Listen, I had to beat the morally part. I can't have it. Sorry.
I don't know. We've covered some interesting subjects on the 40k Adjacent show over the past few weeks, so I feel like I feel like I've let myself down. I'm not sure. Welcome everyone to the show. Thank you very much for everyone for being here. If you're watching us live, like Gregorius Chant and Gitly and Sorry Again, thanks for subscribing. If you listen to the podcast, please stay hydrated. Thanks for being one of the million listeners, and also thanks to everyone that was getting Patreon. Couldn't thank you enough.
Yeah,
so
you talk a lot about hydration, and I'd recommend a protein shake. You know, you get what you need there. It's got the building blocks of your body. Boom. That's it. That's the healthiest thing I ever do for myself is dehydrated cow's milk.
do you not like worry? Are you on that Huel? Have you tried the Huel yet?
What is that hemp-based protein or what? What's Huel?
No, Huel is like I guess it's like a protein supplement, but actually it's more than that. It's meant to be like you could replace a meal with it. They don't suggest that you do, but effectively it's, you know, like in the 70s films where you had the space cube and you ate it, but that as a drink. I don't know, Pete. Do you know anything about Huel? Have you tried it?
I don't know anything about Huel. No, this sounds like a British thing, like Baps and Bopples and Popples.
Popples!
Bit that
those things. Yeah, Bit Baps.
Do you feel that, like, you know, in the 70s when they create those, like, eat all, like, you know, you eat your one tablet and it fills you up for the day?
Yeah.
Do you not feel like Timbits are basically that version of it?
Yes, 100%. Although I do know people that will eat, like, 20 Timbits in a sitting.
That used to be the serving size, quite frankly. It used to be 20 Timbits for $2. It is my old man. Like, that is clearly the thing that has gotten more expensive as we have aged.
Yeah.
Timbits are now 10 for more than $2. As an inflation of over 100%.
As someone who has to buy them almost daily to keep my children in line, and my dog.
Have they got smaller? Because that's the thing that's happened, right?
No.
The Timbit size has stayed the same, at least.
I feel like it has. Box got smaller. Tim Hortons donuts have certainly shrunk, and they forgot how to make it.
That is true.
See,
Well, they also don't make them fresh anymore, right? The Tim Hortons donut, it's all frozen. So.
Centrally manufactured.
You got it.
See, that's something
Nova Scotia.
that was something that was better in the Bush administration, right?
It was better in the Bush administration, but we had a hard time back then, right? So
it may have predated the Tim Hortons. The Tim Hortons. It was a big deal. It's probably Googleable. It was such a big deal when Tim Hortons stopped baking in their restaurants, if you could call it a restaurant, and moved it to a central factory facility.
mm-hmm.
Big.
It was huge deal, and the donuts got worse for it, but their profit margins went up.
Our friends at the Wendy's Corporation made a lot of money.
Oh, well done, Wendy's. She sounds like a nice lady.
Tim Hortons, during the carbohydrate crisis of the early 2000s, mid-Bush administration, if you will, I'm pretty sure I remember reading something along the lines of that Wendy's was losing money, and Tim Hortons, a coffee shop in Canada, and we're talking about a national chain in the United States, was losing money. Tim Hortons made up for the shortfall and posted a profit for them beyond that. Tim Hortons made so much, they drank so much coffee and ate so many donuts from Tim Hortons that they were forced to spin the stock out. They weren't allowed to keep it as an individual stock. They had to spin it out because they felt like it was propping up Wendy's.
Yep. It was a whole thing. I remember this. It's pretty crazy how popular it was. It is losing a lot of steam in the last couple of years. They've made some errors in the media fashion.
boomers, of course, ruining Wendy's now. That's what they're always. Not boomers, sorry, millennials. Millennials and Zoomers. Yeah,
they're ruining Tim Hortons. Well, it's Tim Hortons trying to cater to us as an elder millennial.
What is Tim Hortons doing to cater to me?
They change their menu constantly. They're like, you need your Frippa-Frap Bip Baps, and here's your.
They need to bring in Baps.
They need to bring in the BAP. Maybe that'll do it.
Exactly.
I just want everyone to know that Tim Hortons, if you're English, is kind of our version of Greg's. Our version is called Greg's. Just so you're aware.
Star who went missing and was never found? Because that's who Tim Hortons.
There's a mining town not far from me called Mansfield, and there's a place that you can stand, and it's not a particularly large town. I'd like you to know that it's not a city. There's a place you can stand where, at the same time, I can simultaneously see 3 different Gregs. Yeah, right, which is just wonderful. It's a wonderful experience.
It's the same as my hometown, where I grew up, Moncton, New Brunswick, is, I believe, the most Tim Hortons per capita of any place in Canada, and that is something you can do in multiple places in that city. Like, you can walk out onto Main Street and see 3 Tim Hortons easily. Yeah,
it's hard to think of a vantage point where you can't see multiple Tim Hortons.
It's true. I think Moncton is Tim Hortons now.
It's just a large Tim Hortons.
Yeah. I have a question for you both as an attempt to segue. If you were attending a 40K event, which fast food chain and or cafeteria monopoly would you want to cater that event? You could only choose one, of course.
Do I want Rob to survive the event?
It doesn't matter. That's
not Dairy Queen then. Not Dairy Queen. He won't make it through.
It was clearly the Tim Hortons. 100 cups of Tim Hortons, I think. But anyway,
I think it was the Dairy Queen put him over. Like, he had like 3 bites of that Blizzard. It was over. He was like,
I don't think it was any of that. I think it was that MSG that was in the Chinese plus the green tea. That's what tipped me over the edge. Big shout out to Darren for killing me. Yeah, go on. Who are you going to get?
Points out that it's highly dependent on the availability of toilets. I don't know if that was out of context, non sequitur, but I feel like a lot of things are dependent on that factor, including our choice here.
So again, having been to CCBB and and quite a few of the larger American events, obviously you guys, and in Canada, you guys do things on a scale. So like you know, just in a various random shop, there'll be like 8 toilets or 8 cubicles, whereas in the UK, like, footage is always very valuable. So the toilets are quite often, I don't know how to, it's one of my actual tournament review questions, like, were there Rumble Battle Boards, yes or no? That's a negative or a positive, yeah? But one of the main questions, one of the main review points is always, what were the toilets like and how were the hand dryers? Obviously, I don't know if you guys are aware, but the very best version is that you have paper towels. That's obviously not good for the environment, but it's good for your hands.
Infinite towel. You guys remember that one?
Sorry, Infinite Towel is disgusting.
Infinite Towel. Whoever thought Infinite Towel was a good idea? That is the grossest thing I've ever seen in my life. Amazing stuff. On the topic of tournament reviews, I think the first question on your checklist should always be, was it Warhammer World? Because I'm pretty sure your whole definition is based on basics of Warhammer World. We've mentioned Stephen a few times on this show, and is he still going, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool. But I remember he was on Chapter Tactics with me maybe once, or maybe I wasn't even on the show with him. But he talked about how he's just imagine Stephen Box and how like his physique and how in shape he is going into the bathroom of a Warhammer tournament, and just the horror he must have for everyone's nutritional health and just gastrointestinal fortitude, which is non-existent at that time of the day at a Warhammer tournament. Just the sound of horror in his voice talking about going into a tournament toilet wasn't good.
Well, Actually, little again side note: the hand dryers in Warhammer World when they first, because they had their toilets redone and they had new hand dryers which were pathetic. And it was like a joke of the weekend. So it was like, if you dried your hands, like, yeah, blown on them. But the wonderful site manager for Games Workshop is a fan of the show, which is lovely. And the next time we went in to dry our hands, it was like a tornado. Coming, like, I don't know who we'd hired or what new things it got.
To get the airplane?
Yeah. So those reviews work. Like, oh no, you can't do the Dyson because they. Do you know about the poo particles?
Oh, do they just blast poop particles everywhere?
Everywhere. If you're in a room with Dyson, you're ingesting poo particles.
Oh. They did, but they have a wind tunnel. Didn't they test it in the wind tunnel? Did they not measure with a stopwatch the poop particles in the wind tunnel? Anyone ever seen their propaganda? It's very detailed, their work.
They are everywhere. Poo particles everywhere. So that's why the hand towels are the best one.
You just have to deal with it. Just accept that you are right now eating poop. Val, get over it. Just live with your life.
Everybody poop.
And I'm still like trying to answer Rob's question about what fast food I would want
Please do.
to cater an event, and I don't know. I really don't. I live in a world with like one fast food restaurant, so I don't know. I missed out. I've missed out in the last like 4 years of fast food identity change. So who knows?
Maybe a Pret a Manger. Pret a Manger in the UK is a good one, but it's owned by McDonald's, which a lot of people don't know. So like they pretend to be.
Makes so much sense.
Oh, have you got them in? Yeah, you can feel it now. You see it. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That's funny. There's a supermarket chain in Canada called Loblaws, and they've slowly eaten pretty much. I think they've had to stop acquiring because they would just have like a monopoly if they kept. But I remember I went to this thing called T&T, which is it was a Chinese grocery, and you go in and there's like you can buy all kinds of unusual products, to me anyway, and I remember just like walking through it and just something felt off. Like it was very much like that Matrix thing. Like there's something off about it. And then I came to find out it was owned by Loblaws. But it was like, so everything was like like Chinese packaging, the product selection was entirely different. But the way it was like laid out, like the logic of the store was a Loblaws. It was just so spooky how like that sort of that corporate Borg thing had happened. And it was in a different language, and it was completely different stuff on the aisles, but it was still that thing. So when you said that about Pret a Manger or whatever it's called, Manger, that is absolutely the case. It's 100% made by McDonald's.
But that's what I would. I'd maybe have that do that in the UK. But then we had an event here in a little small thing. But Nikos ran an event, and his girlfriend, who runs I think it's Umami. Oh no, I've maybe got that wrong. Sorry, Nick. But she did like we had some lovely food that she did, and that's what I want. I just want like bespoke local kitchenettes doing our food at tournaments. Like I want some like. Or I've said this before. I'll say this again. If you've never been to an Indian or a Pakistani or like a big kind of Asian wedding, those guys know how to put on food.
Yeah. They do. Yeah,
they'll feed 300 people quality food in like half a minute, like no drama. So yeah, I think
behind the scenes drama, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I was gonna say,
100%.
I think I've never been to it, but Nova does food trucks, if I recall. Like they do like a strat, like a big, like there's a block of food trucks out front of it, and you go out and you do that. And I think that's actually awesome because you get those wicked, like niche food trucks, because apparently that's what millennials have to do to survive, is live in a food truck. Because,
do they live in it at the same time? Because I think I've got a new career path for myself. Living inside a trailer that I stream from. I'm well into that. That's going to be my future. That's what. The stream trailer? Yeah.
One side of the van is a green screen, and on the outside of the van is a Starbucks Wi-Fi connection. You're gold, bud.
Thanks, bud. Yeah, that's my plan. All right. So big 40k news in the past week. there's been loads. Pete,
Lots.
are there any highlights for you?
The change to Overwatch. That's massive. That changes a lot
That
of.
was last week. Okay, all right, I'm into it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Change to Overwatch is big. The fallback strat is big-ish. I think that you're going to be seeing that used more for units to commit Sudoku than anything else.
So I saw someone talking about this. Isn't it just like a dangerous terrain check? Did I misread it?
The fallback strat, yeah, it's kind of it's 2 CP. You can move through any unit on a 1. You roll a dice for every model. On a 1, you pull whichever model you like. But if you do not end your move more than 1 inch away from an enemy unit, you die. And the way that's worded, you could just say, "I'm spending the 2 CP and not moving," and then die if you really need to. Like if there's a situation where you're like, I need this unit gone because no matter what's happening here, I'm screwed.
That is I have orbital bombarded my own dudes for that purpose.
Yeah. So now I think you're going to see that used probably more often than not to commit Sudoku, so that you can blow a unit off the table because you just don't have because they're a liability, right? That unit that's stuck for whatever reason. So no matter what.
It's called like Desperate Escape or something?
Yeah, there was a funny conversation I was having where someone mentioned doing it to a drop pod because the way it's worded, technically a drop pod can't fall back, but because of the way it's worded, you could still select it and then it just doesn't move and dies. So if someone tries to wrap a drop pod for protection, you just spend the 2 CP and blow it up, essentially.
You immediately ruined the point I made, which was a Desperate Escape seems fraught with failure. So like killing your own unit using it seems all right to me. It doesn't seem awful. And then you had to immediately pick the inanimate object.
Yeah, but it's great. I love it. I love it for that because that's the stuff that people think about, right? Initially, in the competitive scene is like, how can I screw this up to gain an advantage? So,
well, I see what you've done there, and I'm going to not do it that way.
Yeah, yep. I see what you're trying to say. I don't like it. Here's my way of handling the situation.
That was my rules designer voice. That's not. I kind of screwed up the meme there. Sorry.
Do you think it's a way to try and get out of the tri-pointing?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's 100% what it is like to get out of tri-pointing. But yeah, I like it. I liked it a lot. I like a lot of the universal strats we're seeing, other than the one that's just like what was the one that they first showed where you could, if somebody tries to fall back, you can beam them like on a 1 in 6 chance for every model within winage. That's I didn't like that stratagem. Basically, all the other ones so far I've enjoyed. So that was cool seeing that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's quite telling. Depends though, right? Because it's 1 attack per model, so you got to have a load of models, and we've already talked about the fact
and they have to be within an inch. And
yeah.
I don't like that's the one I don't like. Like that's what I don't know if I came across. That one is kind of gross. So I don't think it's very good at all. It's a last ditch effort. Oh, there's a guy with 1 wound trying to fall back. I'm just gonna hope for the best. Get rid of him.
OJ 180, 40K learned how to tri-point from Age of Sigmar. He said we lose them. I assume that's because he plays Age of Sigmar, or he's just lonely and hangs out on Twitch following random shows.
No, Owen's amazing. He plays Age of Sigmar, although I think he's quite excited by Necrons. I think what's cool about being able to talk about both game systems on the show, obviously, is being able to translate those things. So tri-pointing, the terminology is really only 40k centric, but then you guys skip out on all of the Age of Sigmar playtest drama, so like there's no correlation between the two sometimes. But yeah, tri-pointing is where you effectively wrap a unit, or you put models around a unit, specifically 3 models around a single base, so that that unit can't fall back, so that you escape the enemy shooting. It doesn't apply in Age of Sigmar because you can shoot into combat in Age of Sigmar.
Oh, hence. But wouldn't you still want to trap units from time to time so that they can't just go do it?
Because there's, while the games are similar-ish, there's such like intensely different mechanics. Like when it comes to like the nuance, like for instance, like there's normally a block of 30 dudes, or like a tough unit. I normally run these 12 very elite unit models called Kadai, and oftentimes a bit of a trick for my opponent, they'll take their 2 hammer units, but instead of hitting me in the center, or not even hammer units, like good-ish units, instead of hitting me in the center, they'll just attack me at the sides. So because I can't pile in outwards and I have to pile in equidistant, they don't tri-point me, they bullhorns. My friend Jonathan had a very weird name for it, which I won't repeat. But yeah.
The shocker?
Whoa.
I mean, the shocker works. That's good. But yeah, doing that means that you're independent. You're not getting the full frontage of your attacks. But 18 Mart is was far more combat orientated. So like there was more minutia.
What I was trying to say there was in the early goings of 8th edition 40K, 4DK, if you will. I think a lot of people who had been used to the AOS, fight phase, charge phase, fight phase system, they brought a lot of that early knowledge into 40K. So like a lot of those guys kind of intuitively understood like piling in and consolidation in the frame of reference of 8th edition. And so I feel like a lot of the early nuance of it was explained to us by AOS players. And although broadly speaking, maybe it's a lot different. I was trying to tip the cap here, guy. Trying to tip the cap.
It's okay, Val.
Screwed it up.
They can't accept any of it. It's a hard game. It's understandable.
No, I think 40K it's become its own beast in so many ways now, right? Like yes. I think that was true, but I think actually as time goes on, that 1 inch distance that you have to maintain before you're in engagement range is significantly different. In fact, in how you can control the board space and do things. So,
have we heard that? Do we think there's going to be varying engagement ranges like Sigmar? If we think, or
they haven't talked about that. I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to use it as like a rule they can modify with strats and such to say, oh, this unit does have an extra engagement range or whatnot. But I believe the 1 inch is the go-to now. It helps, especially for like newer players, because the old models within an inch plus ones that are within an inch of an inch caused all sorts of grief once you got to certain competitive play because of like
hold up a tick. So it's no longer do we know that?
We don't know that, but that's my thought, is that they're making it simpler by saying you have to be within an engagement range to do shit instead of saying inch within an inch,
guy within an inch.
Yeah.
That's my guess. That is my guess. They might say like if you are in base contact with somebody within an inch, but I don't think they'll do this.
And another thing that
plus inch
these
situation.
What will become of Du Bois?
Well, I don't think it's. I think they really need to sell all those wigwam chiggy buggies or whatever they called them, like all of those.
Wigwam chiggy buggies. How many slurs can you fit into one orc? That's impressive. You could write for them at this point.
I don't understand why they had to name them all so crazy. Snozgob Biggle Buckets and such.
Tim Horton Tootie Blasters. That's my favorite one.
They could have just called them buggies. Here's all buggies. This is the orc buggy, the snotling buggy, the goblin buggy.
I actually prefer the names. I think that they make them so much better. Big shout out everyone for joining us. Thanks for being here. The question in the chat, which I think is a good one, because although we're flying past it, how do you guys feel about rapping anyway? Is it good part of the game or just a glitch that people exploit?
Well, if you're just doing the A-B rapping, just sort of rhyming on at the end of the line, I think it's pretty corny. But once you're actually rhyming syllables and, getting into more of that sound combination style, I think that's when you see sort of the elevation of it as an art form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
I'm with Val.
But it's going away, right? Like its application is going away, which seems to. Or it's attempted to go away a little bit, but it still costs a CP. So that, I know we're getting more CP in brackets, but we're also, we're also having to use more CP.
I've thought a lot about the Overwatch change because that one I think is the biggest one they've shown so far, and at first I was like, what? And then I was like, eh. And now I'm kind of 50-50 on it. The fact that you now have to spend CP to Overwatch, so you can only Overwatch once in a turn, that's pretty crazy. But it really only hurts Tau, so I'm not that angry about it. And a little bit Iron Hands, but they were so strong in everything that it doesn't really matter. And it speeds up the game because there's a lot of useless Overwatch that happens in a game sometimes, right? Like a lot of, I'm going to shoot you with my 10 las pistols. Give me a second.
That is such a brilliant no-brainer. I don't know about you guys, but I was surprised Overwatch survived into 8th edition. I thought that was kind of I thought that would go away because it's super dumb. I mean, it's dumb except for when it isn't. Yes, Rob?
I'm just waiting to see what shit you tried to say. What did you say that I missed? Yeah, apparently you made a joke, and now I'm paying so much attention. I'm like eyeballing you. Yeah.
I spoke for about 15 seconds about different forms of rap, as in hip hop, and
I honestly thought that was some. I thought that was some high-level tech talk about rapping because I have seen because the Goonhammer article talks about AB as in the different units, and I was like, maybe he's memorized this and he's just like on it. So, well done.
I just assumed your eyes glazed over.
Artificial amateurs aren't it all amazing? Analytically, I assault.
Orange syringes, peach plums, pears. Anyways, Eminem, he's great. Was he? Is he? I don't know. Just a misogynist.
I think he's great.
Pretty sure.
I mean,
it's misogynist.
Because of him, Korea saved that Trump rally. That's what I got out of the articles from the weekend.
What? Okay.
Yeah, it's all about those Korean stands. They're the future.
Korean stands.
Can we for all the Korean stands, please? Did you? What were you? Can I ask your favorite hip hop track right now before we go any further?
You just heard it. You just heard it. Me dropping Black Alicious on air.
I mean, that's very good. I don't know. I gotta go real classic party and bullshit, probably. That's pretty good. Hugs from the homies. Hugs from the honeys, pounds from the roughnecks. See my man say that I knew from the projects. Ask me if I have beef. Sure do. 222s in my shoes. Wow. Et cetera, et cetera.
Mine is TLC No Scrubs.
Is that a hip-hop song, though?
I don't know. But my follow-up would be Charmaine by Plan B off his initial EP.
Yes.
Wait.
Okay.
Shut up, Falcon. Have you heard that?
Yes. I'm hip to the hop.
Hip to the hop.
39. I'm a 39-year-old father of 3 that plays Jay-Z for his daughter so that we can dance around the kitchen. So.
Oh my God, that honestly. So I would play that sometimes in the club when I'd be playing when I would be in that genre, and whenever I just see some ghetto youth come over, like just be like some fucking kid, right? My brother is one of them, Skater. He's just like a mess, and he'd just fly over to me, and be like, start singing and dancing, or my friend Chantel. And it was just great fun. Loved it. Anyway, let's carry on with what we were talking about, which is 4K.
So I think what were we talking about?
Let's go back to Du Bois. So an army that has long been built on the backs of 30 dude units. Mm-hmm. The other thing I've heard rumored is that coherency is going to become like Apocalypse. I don't know if that was confirmed anywhere, but essentially where you have to be in coherency of 2 models instead of 1, which makes your footprint really tiny.
It's possible. I've heard there's definitely that's not been said, but there's a talk that is going to be an important part of it. And it kind of fits. We were talking on air about the Brian Pullen interview that Ken Hammer did yesterday. Anybody that's interested in actual 40K talk, it's a really good talk. It's mostly Custodes focused, but Brian does talk a lot about what to expect in 9th edition in it. Like, it was the most valuable 9th edition talk I've heard yet, in terms of where like a highly competitive player who's very well spoken thinks the game is going to go. So it's very good. It's very good listen. And Darren's not that bad of an interviewer. He's okay.
So bad.
I know he listens to this at some point.
He's in the chat. He was a second ago anyway.
He was in the chat a second ago. So he's not. I'm going to go and give that a listen. So that's Canhammer TV. If you guys go and want to check that out, it's on YouTube. It might also be a podcast.
So it's like I said, it's very Custodes focused because that's like Darren's whole shtick, and I love it. So I was into it the entire time. But Brian does talk a lot about his 9th edition expectations. He doesn't like break anything new other than what he expects based on rules we haven't seen yet, on top of what we have already seen. So he's talking a lot about he expects vehicles to be big for a while. Then people will probably move to stuff that kills vehicles. MSU is definitely a thing. He mentions missions, like the ones we've seen. A lot of them are very similar. So it's a lot about mid-board control and staying alive turn to turn. So you can control these objectives that are very close to the center of the board. So you don't need as much speed as you used to in the 6x4 table world, because you can. It sounds a lot like where I thought like ITC was going in 8th with the new missions, where it was very much you have to like objectives were very board centric. You have to be in that middle area and then project out. So it's a very good listen. I highly recommend it. And Brian's just a great dude. His Tabletop Titans videos on YouTube are probably the best battle reports out there right now. So that's also something good to listen to.
Yeah, they're pretty damn good. Actually, there's some really good people innovating in the old battle report space. I love the tech he uses. He's an AV nerd, and he's thought very long and hard about how to do live, tabletop. Battle reports. That's the word I'm looking for, as opposed to like a live tournament game, like an actual live battle report. He's really honed it with his pal. What's his buddy's name?
Well, there's Adrian Michaels and Bridger Hahn, and two of them work for, I believe two of them work for Google for YouTube. So that helps. That helps a lot.
That does help. That does help.
Brian Pollen from my home hood of Scarborough.
Yeah, now he lives in Northern California.
Then he moved to California. Later, buddy.
Later, pal.
Later,
pal. Buddy, pal.
Yeah, those Tabletop Titans videos are really good.
Back to the boys. So in this MSU world, what do we think of? Because I've been mulling. I use mulling there as a way to bridge Mullen. I don't know why. Anyway, Pollen is actually his name.
Yep,
that didn't work at all. Anyway, Du Bois, MSU, brigades. Do we think brigades will have a place in the game because it will provide you so many slots? I wonder if the game is so extremely MSU, I wonder if having force orgs that have just more slots available to you become valuable because of that. So like for the orcs, I can think there are usable units in every single unit type of the orcs, like fast attack, elites, and all that kind of stuff. They're very good units in every single one. You just didn't necessarily want to bring them all. Whereas now, and like even Stephen Pamprine, one of his builds after he won his GT with sort of what became a very standard build, he went to a Death Skulls brigade, and it was a Death Skull brigade double battalion, if I remember correctly, or maybe single.
You're right. It was as many CP as you could possibly throw into a list.
It was hilarious, but like that even then, when that maybe didn't seem to make intuitive sense, he just had so many hilariously small units that had a ton of rerolls. So I wonder, what do we think? Brigades actually having value, even if they don't give you a CP boost?
I don't know. I think for most armies, the battalion's going to be all you need. Because they haven't really said that there's any benefit to taking one over the other any longer, because they both give you back your CP for your warlord. So I think that is something we need a little more info on to see why you would ever do it. There's armies I could see, like orcs. AdMech now have really good units in every slot, and there's a reason to take all of them. Guard have always been very brigade healthy, so.
Like with orcs, you can get like at least 45, like just minimum units, like 3x5 man units of freebooters, or I'm not saying them right, the pirate guys.
Yeah, freebooters, you're fine.
3x5 units of
flash kits
of stormers. Thank you, flash kits. 3x5 units of commandos. That's 45 dudes, and there's even more elites that you can dive into, and fast attack like MSU. Like you could have almost a horde of MSU using a brigade and orcs, if that actually is something.
But that's based on current points, right? Obviously, one of the things that has been mentioned is that like there's going to be a points increase across the board. And if it's even if it's just a flat 20, let's just call it a flat 25%, because we've seen stuff range between 22, 14, and 50%. So let's just call it 25% to make it easy. It means armies will be 25% smaller, which means our ability to take. I mean, obviously orcs like everything's cheaper, but you're going to have lower percentage models on the board anyway, so those brigades might even get less of a look in because you're not going to be taking huge units.
So that is something Brian did bring up, and he did say that it's not across the board. There are definitely units that don't go up or don't go up very much at all. So there are some armies that won't see this big flat change.
I'm also
it'll be cute. It'll be cute to see.
Are you having a Tootsie Roll Pop there, pal?
This is a root beer flavored sucker that was on my table in front of me that my children had, so it's now mine.
What I was going to say was that, hey, buddy!
Yeah. Someone just said pray for Stomper, and I would just like to shout out my man Randy for sending me a Stomper, and I'm painting this bad boy up. That's what I'm going to do, because...
You painted that with a brush? Or is that
No, I'm going to. No, that's spray, and now I'm starting to paint. It's just finished. I sprayed this in the office. No mask.
I love that. It's just,
well, I just wanted to get that authentic miner feel.
Yeah, it's corrugated steel moo is I was wondering too on that points thing, if especially for the horde style armies, I hope that if they do a points increase, that at the very least they decrease the spread between troops and elite units. So that way, like, relatively speaking, even though you have to take troops to get your, brigade battalion to get your first detachment, that at least, to fill out the other ones, you're not being punished as much for those guys. And then that also gives you a bit more of an incentive to take the elite dudes over the bodies.
Yeah, they also said patrols give back your CP as well, right? So for very elite armies, you can choose to just take one troop squad. Now, Brian did mention, and I'm leaking the whole interview, so I don't know. Maybe you guys shouldn't listen anymore to it. But he did say that he felt battalion will be the way to go from a custodes. He said that even though patrol seems like the way to go for custodes because our troops are kind of lackluster in comparison to everything else, he thought most people would end up doing battalions anyway. So it makes me wonder what the extra benefit of troops is going to be. Or if it's just so you open up more slots because extra detachments are so expensive and custodians love their elite slot so bad. So it's interesting. There's a lot. Like, I love this part of the waiting for the edition where we're getting this drip feed. So anytime anybody talks, you're like hyper analyze everything they say. It just makes my day. I do it. I'm doing it right now.
I want to start a new show. I want to do a new show where I just review what other people have said. Just condense it down into like bullet points. Mix these 3 bullet points, and we're out. Let's go. Done. But that would make me obviously a parasite, which I won't be. So
there's a cottage industry for business books that is literally that, just abstracts, because a business book essentially is one paragraph of information spread out over 200 pages. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you could make a very effective show just summarizing
other shows. Yeah.
GW summary show.
Can we talk about the other gossip? Because this is one that is most important and relates most to orcs. Is faction terrain becoming free inside the game? Free faction terrain.
Free useless piece of terrain. Great.
Free use. I mean, some of it's not useless. Some of it has occasionally a mild effect.
Not the Mech Boys Workshop, though.
Not that.
It's not
the poop tree.
It's actually a negative effect. It is literally hurting yourself to use the Mech Boys Workshop.
It's true. But the poop tree is good. It's been too many points for a long time.
Gene Stealer called Drill.
Drill is decent. Cool. If you're getting it for free, it's great.
Yeah. Stargate.
Thing.
Yeah. Can we just talk about Stargate?
What a movie!
A TV show.
What a movie!
I never watched the MacGyver.
You missed out. You missed out.
Yeah, good.
You missed out.
It was worth it. It was a good show. Richard Dean Anderson, top of his game in that TV show. Many laughs.
I think that was his best
laughs.
performance since Airwolf. Was he in Airwolf?
Richard Dean Anderson? I'm not sure. He was in MacGyver, and then I thought he died, and then he was in Stargate, and he may have. There may have been.
I think he might have been in Airwolf, but I'm not 100% sold on that.
Fun story. If you didn't know, Richard Dean Anderson's brother, Craig Anderson, played for the Edmonton Oilers, won Stanley Cups. Richard was supposed to have been the better hockey player, but he injured his knee, so he went into acting.
Well, thank goodness he did. Otherwise, we would not have had
someone who suffered like crippling, like literally a crippling knee injury playing high school rugby.
Rugby? What ho? You played some rugby, did you?
Rugby. You said a little orange slice at the half, and then we get back out there, pip pip. Yes, I did play a little rugger. I was a I was a tight head prop. There it is. I was
a loose goose.
The loose head prop and the hooker. They knew how to have a good time. But why am I talking? Oh, just like collegiate sports before, or just sports or any recreation before like 15 years ago. If you hurt yourself, you were just maimed forever. Like you couldn't. Your knee would go out on you if you were walking down the stairs in the wrong way. That just makes it so. How did sports ever become a thing? Like you had to have balls of steel to like, or just like absolutely zero concern for your well-being in order to do it. Anyway,
agreed.
So for everyone, while we're building the T-Sports scene out here, there's no risk of life-altering injury. So we have no.
Say that.
I don't know.
Enough parking lot brawls.
I was also going to, just to be adjacent to the adjacency here, Matt Gruber, which is a bad Saturday Night Live sketch. Worst
and a movie.
I was going to say, worst spin-off Saturday Night Live movie ever?
What was that one?
I don't know what the worst is, but I know what the best is.
What is it?
The best Saturday Night Live spin-off movie is, of course, and will always be The Blues Brothers.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm on a mission from Gad.
Yeah, you had me for a second.
I feel like I've said this, but are you guys aware that was the most expensive film ever made at the time it was released?
Yes, I was aware.
I did not know that.
When you think about it for a second, it's like, yeah, obviously. Like, they shut down downtown Chicago and, like, bring the entire army in. They, like, crash 1 million cars. But, yeah, it was the most expensive film ever made.
But there's also a scene where it goes from B.B. King to John Lee Hooker to Ray Charles in, like, 3 minutes. And Aretha Franklin.
Blackalicious.
John Lee Hooker is a throwaway. He's singing in the street as they're going in to see Ray. Boom, 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 boom. I just thought he was a crazy old man for like my whole life until I got into my mid-20s and a bout of depression in the late Bush administration. And I got blues. And I was like, boom, boom, boom. What the hell? That guy's a somebody? And then I found out John Lee Hooker is like a very important musician.
Did I ever tell you that I started an entire club night based off that film?
Good.
Yeah.
That movie should be celebrated. It's also probably one of the best movie musicals of all time.
Probably the best.
It is so good. Without your plain dry white toast, without your 4 fried chickens.
I just anyway, let's just do a movie watched of that.
Just that scene. Sorry, you guys, you set me off here. That scene, Aretha Franklin, and that scene, because she never sang with the same phrasing. That is one of the only live performances in that film.
Oh, really?
Yes, that is a live recording on that because she does not sing songs the same way twice.
Unbelievable. Also, that Minnie the Moocher at the end, brilliant.
Oh, Cab Calloway is in that movie, guys. So like blues, jazz, like it's a mid 20th century thing. So like they were all of. Like, so everyone in that film is sort of like approaching middle age or older. Like Cab Calloway is like an older man. He's probably in his 60s or 70s in that. Mm-hmm. Like everyone's still alive and still like able to perform really well. And so it's like such a beautiful homage. This is 1983, I think, 1980, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. So it's like just 79? A beautiful. I think it's 80.
I thought it was 2 years before I was born. Maybe it was 1. Maybe you're right, 80.
Anyway, it's just such a wonderful film. If you haven't seen it, brothers. By God, see the Blues Brothers.
So
segue
good.
back to Wargamer now.
I don't know how to segue back. I was like thinking it through. I was like, how would I get back? If you were going to run a 40k event, what music would you use to,
What
to
musical
intro it?
would you perform in it?
It would
just be Dayman. From It's Always Sunny.
Yeah.
I'd perform that the entire time.
Of the two Blues Brothers, which army would the two play?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask which one I was, because it's Belushi 100%.
I mean, obviously it's Belushi. I mean, obviously
everyone is
Belushi. Val's not Belushi.
Are you sure?
I'm not sure. Are we all Belushi? I don't think that makes sense. I might not be Belushi, actually.
I'd bring Bronx in, but he's snoring pretty heavy.
Look at that cute dog. Oh. Yeah. What two 40k characters could be Jake and Elwood? There you go.
I feel like they've probably already have. It's probably like Gotrek and Felix are actually their Blues Brother characters.
Yeah. I would say Gotrek and Felix is a good combo for that.
I feel like it's Gaz and the human with the claw.
Yarrick.
Yeah. That's my combo.
Omega and
I could see.
Omegron. What are those guys? Alfarius.
Alfarius and Omegon, yeah.
Oh no, aren't they Erebus and Lorgar? They're like, I'm on a mission from Gad. I'm on a mission from Gad.
There we go. That's a good combo. I like it.
That works.
Yes.
My two least favorite 40k characters are two of my favorite movie characters. I like it.
All right, so the free terrain you're not bothered about.
So is this a speculation thing? The free terrain
I think
thing?
it's a speculation thing.
Currently, it's speculation.
I think that the whole free. Peaches, why are you mad? Why are you mad?
I don't buy a mech shop.
My other bulldog is taking some umbrage right now with the stream. You can hear him. He freaked out. It's just I'm talking to the internet, pal. Well, breakfast. You can go.
I think it will come, Pete, because they've made so much money. So, and if they're not bothered about pissing us off with changing the space of the board, then they're not bothered about like hitting us with the terrain tax, as we might see. I don't
think they. I just think there's a legacy of free rules in 40k that maybe you didn't have in AOS, and so like. For example, AOS brought back summoning, and it brought in free terrain, and both of those will trigger anyone who played 7th edition. So I don't know if you necessarily would see it in 40k, because both those concepts have been roundly proven to be very poor ideas.
Yeah, I don't know. I could definitely see them adding fortification to, like, you can just take one. As in, not that the points are free, but you can just have one. That I could see. Because the biggest complaint about fortifications has been that you have to use an entire detachment to take it.
Mm-hmm.
Reading tea leaves of what Reese, like we were talking about, like Signals from the Front Line. Another great show if you want to try and infer stuff by the way they phrase things. Seems to suggest to me that they aren't going to have like an easy way to bring fortifications, but I don't know.
Well, but the Met Boy Workshop isn't a fortification, right? Like the Stargate isn't a fortification. Like fortifications, as in barriers and the Aegeus Wharf, the Imperium, that sort of stuff.
Right now, to bring one, you would have to bring a fortification detachment. So they are terrain once on the table, but they do take fortification slots, if that makes sense. Sort of like how a flyer is not necessarily an aircraft.
Yes. I don't know. I'm excited personally because I think the outrage of that would just be really fun to watch. Not in a horrible way, just in a fun. Because we've already got to deal with it in Age of Sigmar, so I'm just like, cool. If you got to deal with it, we all got to deal with it. Let's just have it. Let's just do it, which I think would be fun. Free trenches for Krieg, that'd be fun. But I just thought I'd ask what you two thought about it because
So this is what I love. I love actually talking about. Like at this time specifically, once 9th edition releases, I no longer will need to talk to you for your AOS insights. But what has the impact of free terrain been? Like, has it worked, Or do some armies have a baked-in advantage just because their one free piece is better than everyone else's? Has it been executed well?
It's not been executed well. Sometimes stuff means nothing, and sometimes stuff is really important. It dictates sometimes when the stuff's important. It dictates either how you play or how your opponent has to play with it in mind, which you would feel is actually a positive. But truthfully, sometimes you want like a little bit more freedom. And then also because some armies have something that's great and some people have things that aren't great, then there's that imbalance where it's all free but some of it isn't impactful. But probably the biggest issue has been actually is because in Age of Sigmar, and as was in 40k, which I'm hoping goes away now, there weren't necessarily clear definitions on how big terrain should be, how many sets of terrain or how many pieces of terrain there should be, and therefore, so sometimes and putting that terrain down can be problematic. So sometimes you might get that's been cleared up a little bit now because you kind of have to make space in your deployment zone for there being. Like I need to put my terrain down in this situation, but for some armies it's a big positive, and for some armies like Sylvaneth who rely on putting multiple sets of their terrain down, it's a huge negative because they actually can't put their terrain down very effectively, so they can't play the game, which their whole game is oriented. Sylvaneth is a bad example really because their whole game is oriented around playing with that, and they can't do that, whereas when you've just got a singular piece, and sometimes they're quite small, they can be quite useful. They can be quite useful and kind of fun, I guess. So, hit and miss.
The more you're talking, the more scared I am about this prospect because of the Battle Sanctum for Sisters, because it has no recommended way to build it. You can build it however you like, and if you get that for free, that's ridiculous. Someone's going to break that in a second because of how easily you could make it into like this like untargetable behemoth in your deployment zone. Anyway.
Yeah, well, it's a rumor, so which probably like is useless chat, but like because one of the things I actually saw, so in the Necron leaks, so we obviously haven't seen the model for the Silent King yet, but if anyone wants to go and check out the Silent King model, or that you can see in the background, he's on a base. But then there are two other based things next to the Silent King that look like.
Sorry. I was going to say, like, there was a leak recently with what people thought might be the Silent King rules, and they indicated those are like kind of like Catan pylons that absorb damage for the Silent King. They're like kind of almost like a bodyguard.
Yeah, there were rumored rules leaked for the Silent King in pretty good detail. I didn't read them.
I did.
Go on, Pete. Sorry,
I did, and it like they're definitely plausible. I'm not gonna say they're 100%. This is what it is, but they're definitely plausible. And they had them as like these Catan orbs. They can cast Catan abilities out of them, and they can take wounds for the Silent King. Instead, like they have like 8 wounds and they're toughness 7 or something, and they can absorb damage for him. On top of doing what else they do, so
like shield drones, basically, kind of thing.
Kind of like 2 giant shield drones, essentially.
Okay, cool.
That are also dangerous. So it's like, and it seemed like if you kill him, they go away, but he's so much harder to kill because of them. So it's like, do you focus them down first, if the rumors are true? So,
hey, since we were sort of talking terrain for a second, something just occurred to me. Do you think fortifications will get the keywords?
Yeah.
Like the terrain keywords. That's kind of interesting. Because right now you can bring things that probably won't like the Wall of Martyrs shield line, which I would love it if that piece, because I have a bunch of it right now and it's just sitting at the bottom of a box. Like, I would love it if that piece actually was useful, like if it was like defensible and heavy and soft cover, whatever it is. But like, yeah, I wonder because that might provide real incentive to bring terrain pieces and automatically fortifications and automatically give them a real boost. And also, like, because right now too, fortifications, because they're models. I hope they clarify this because the fortification rules are incomplete in 8th edition. Something I brought up when I was trying to bring a. Help me out. The fort with the missiles. It's really awesome.
Oh, the missile vortex.
kill a stronghold. Yeah, I brought it to my first LVO of 8th edition with my orcs. Anyway, neither here nor there. I was pointing out that like coming into it from 7th edition, you could put models on top and stuff, but fortifications are fully abstracted in 8th, and they're models in your army, so you actually like can't put anything on top of it, and a unit can't land on top of it, so your enemy can't. They can only go to base with it. The only thing that had rules that addressed this after like 4 FAQ attempts was the landing pad,
and they did it wrong.
And they screwed it up.
Yeah, they screwed up the rules. The way the Sky Shield landing pad is worded, your opponent can get on top of it, but you can't after deployment. So you can deploy models on it, but then you can't walk on top of them, and your opponent is allowed to because of the way they worded the friggin' rule, and they've never changed it.
Yeah, it never actually became a real like. It never really became an issue because fortifications were never taken because you never got CP for them. But in a lot of cases, like the only banned units I can think of in 8th edition tournament play were fortifications. And like a lot of times, like TOs just did not want to deal with them because they're incomplete. So I'm really curious. I'm now super curious. Will defensible or scalable and those things be given to fortifications that you can take that then allow them to be a lot more in your army?
That's a good question.
I personally think it's a great. That's the one thing I will say about the terrain from Age of Sigmar is that it's been a really great and creative design space. Now, whether or not that's been actually impactful, like a good example is the Gloomspite Gits one. So it makes everyone within. Everyone within wholly within 12 inches immune to battle shot, which is quite an important thing for the Gits. They normally play fairly MSUE. They've got pretty low bravery. It's really good, but the coolest part about it is it's the tip of a tunnel that goes into the dank hold, and when you kill a unit of grots, they get to roll a dice and generate another unit of grots out the dank hold, and thematically, it's gangster.
The dank hold?
The dank hold. Yeah, that's what it's called. It's called the dank hold. Yeah.
I thought this was getting sexual. I thought you were saying dank hole, and I was like, what is happening?
Well, it is the dank hole to the dank hold.
Room in university.
It's just spitting out grots out of its dank hole.
Yeah, and its inclusion on the tabletop does make the game feel more like a setting, and I actually think games feeling like a setting, no matter how much we abstract it out to the gaming element that it might be, I feel like almost all competitive gamers are still narrative to a degree. Like,
like just the way this is, everything feels like it's setting up. Feels like it's going to be a lot of fun and dynamic in 9th edition. Like just the way that reserves seem to be shaping up, the way that they fixed flyers, but the way the terrain seems to be, the missions, everything feels like it's going to be like a lot more fun and like the what do they call it? The cinema of the mind.
Yeah, but can I bring up something? I wanted to bring this up, but I don't want to be too like grumpy about it.
Damn,
like
fanboy. I'm sorry, I forgot what it was.
Grumpy. Do it.
No. Like I'm with you. I desperately want to fall in love with this. 40k and Warhammer generally reminds me a lot of my relationships. Like I'd really like them to work out. Like that's my thing. Yeah, like I go into it desperate to be in love and have a good life. But well, life hasn't always worked out that way, and I'm sure some of you can also get that feeling too. And my point is that's how I felt about all the stuff from Games Workshop. Like Pete just then was like, the landing pad 4 times through, they still fucked it up. Iron Hands recently, they still fucked it up. Like that, like. I desperately want 9th edition to be really good because of all those things Val said, like fun, cinematic, cinema of the mind, gaming that's tactical and narrative. I want that experience, like, and I hope that's what we get. But like, do you get that worry ever? Do you ever get that those nerves because we've been through the cycle?
The only people who I will ever get short with or mad at for not understanding something or misunderstanding me are people who I have expectations of. You know, like, so I think that's where a lot of the like rage and the frustration comes from, is because we all care so deeply about this, and we also expect a lot out of it because there is so much good. So when there's a head-scratchingly bad thing that happens, we get super pissed about it. So I don't know where I'm going with that. And yes, obviously there's a little concern about, execution and all that. But like I said, right when this was announced and they had their top 9 things about 9th edition, I said, if I were to write a short list of 9 things I think that they need to work on from 8th edition, those may have been the same 9 things. And so far in what they've revealed, it seems like they've come up with some cool solutions. And we'll see how it all works together, though.
Okay. All right, Pete, you got any thoughts on that?
No, it's dead on. Just like you, I'm always worried because, I've been through this before. Like, a born again man child says, fantasy end times. So like, there's always a concern that something's gonna happen, and you're gonna be like, why? Why did you do that? You were onto something there, and then you did that. So that's always gonna be something that worries me. But eighth, for the most part, up until Iron Hands, was great. Like, there was little things that you had to say, like, what are you doing? But it was little. Like, it was a playable game that was a lot of fun and brought so much to the community. So there's a hope that, hey, they're doing better. The playtesters the ones that are talking seem very excited, not just the ones that, have a kind of a vested interest, which is big. It's not just the guys that make money off of this game, right? So
I have something that I've wanted to say on a podcast for a while because I was thinking about this, which is the relationship of the playtesters and the development cycle, which is, probably no one else noticed this, but when the playtesters when the conch shell was first blown and all the guys who got hooked up went to Nottingham to be, to kiss the ring and sign the NDAs. When that first happened, that was in the development cycle where they were probably, and I think as Legend tells it, Reese would tell it, they were basically handed the 8th edition rule set and said,
Correct.
What do you think, guys? Right?
Yeah.
So, whereas
I was there that day.
Really? Oh, that's cool. But in this cycle, they would have been there, potentially. I don't know when they were brought in on this way, but potentially they would have been there giving feedback the whole time. So that's a very, very different impact, potentially, for the playtesters and that wider game-breaking crowd to have had input, whereas the design team was probably pretty pot committed to a lot of their concepts by the time the playtesters were giving feedback. They were just sort of, dotting T's and crossing I's. It wasn't something that they could have necessarily influenced as much from the beginning, whereas I think you can see, like, especially in the mission sets and in some of the and in the things that they're addressing, it feels like it's been very focused by the feedback that they get from their community playtesters. I hope. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it feels like they've had a longer term impact and have been able to guide the process a bit. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, it's also really important who their developmental lead is, right? Like for 40k, which we actually don't know. That isn't anything of public record as far as I'm aware of. I know Robin was the head rules writer, but I don't know who their developmental lead is, which is a slightly different job role. And that's more the liaison. And how much, as much as I have faith in people that genuinely want to try and make something better, that don't have vested interests, like Pete said, like, I also worry how much that information gets listened to, right? Like, and then how it's applied, because that's always the key point in this situation. You can have tons of talented people working hard on a project, but if the lead is an idiot, well, I was looking, like, of all things, like, we look at Magic the Gathering, they have fuck ups all the time. You look at League, they have fuck ups all the time. I was recently looking at the production information that was going on behind the scenes to do with League of Legends. There's one of the leagues is called LCS. And then there was some pretty public outcry about just how poor it was in the creative decision making in presenting that to the crowd. And this is a company that isn't shy of money, talent. They're right on that cutting edge of people who know what to say and do. But the lead, so the creative director, is just fucking it up consistently. And and that's an important point to make. That's why Steve Jobs is a thing. That's why those enigmatic megafauna. There we go. That's the term. I got one in. They're a big deal, right? Like, they're important. That's why the wonderful Alan Bly was so important for making Heresy a thing, because he was a talented lead. And I worry, based on some of the other stuff that we've seen, maybe I don't know who that lead is. I feel like disconnected. I'm like, I want to know something about that lead. I want to understand them, and because we all want the game to be better. Anyway, that's my 10 cents. I'm not sure if I made a point. I just expressed a fear.
Colonel Cabbage, who, by the way, I am so sorry I bumped you from the Vermintide 2 stream. I should have taken a knee myself, but I appreciate you being selfless and letting Dayton O'Bray, who woke up at 5 a.m. to play in that thing on Sunday. Thank you, Colonel Cabbage. Also referenced, by the way, if you're a Dark Elves, not Dark Elves.
Dark Eldar. Drukari.
Kari. Wow, got that wrong 3 different ways. He referenced the Splintermind podcast And apparently they gave some insight on playtesting, and that's cool because I don't often listen to it, but they got some great guys on there. They were actually brought in to be I think they're lore playtesters for Drukhari because they made a podcast that was so dedicated to Dark Elves in space that they were brought in. So that's pretty cool. And then also friends at Tabletop Tactics, they did a little spiel. They didn't get as deep into it, but ironically enough, it was one of the most detailed. This is so strange. I don't know why it's opaque, but it was one of the more detailed explanations of their playtesting process from Lawrence and Ben over at Tabletop Tactics. It's funny how we know it exists, but they're cagey about how it works. I don't know why. I'd love to ask somebody who knows why they decide why it's opaque. But anyway, so there's it's cool because I think this time around too, a lot of the playtesters have either been told they can or feel more emboldened to speak on behalf of the design process. And so as Pete was saying, there's more chances to sort of read into what might be coming, and I think it's really cool. So there's another 2 places you can go hear some playtesters. Signals from the front line, because I'm not going to take a breath. I'm going to keep talking. Signals from the front line with Reese and Frankie. It's a Twitch show on Wednesdays. What time was it? 11 o'clock? 11 a.m. PST?
11 PST, yeah.
So that's like 4 o'clock? No. Evening in the UK, worth watching. Anyway, I'm done.
Well, also, if you are a Drukhari fan, segue for tomorrow, you can join me and a particularly well-known Canadian talking Drukhari tomorrow, which is exciting. I'm looking forward to that, especially with everything that's changing. I think Drukhari are in a sweet spot for the future. To be honest, they've got some good MSU units, got fast, they got tanky, they're good.
That's what I'm saying with the brigade idea. Like armies that have tons of different units that can be MSU'd. I'm wondering if there's a lot of play there. I can't wait. Although
it's going to be interesting because they also said it's a very elite game, right? So do you want a bunch of troops if your troops aren't elite?
But this is all this is again what we don't know.
No, I know. I love it.
We don't know if they really tried to go as far as you can go with MSU because if they try and make it anti-horde, but they provide a lot of incentives for small units. There are a lot of armies out there that can bring, even with a rule of 3, so many units that you can put 100+ models on the table, no problem, with 5 each.
And I've said this before multiple times on different shows. Like, the playtesters are great, and I know a lot of them, and they're very good players, so they're going to catch a lot of stuff. But once it gets into the hive mind of the community, there's going to be some dude in a basement that's going to be like, man, just like with 8 started. They're like, they forgot about Razorwing flocks. Fuck them. Here's 200. And then
Storm
it's going to
get chips.
I mean, did they forget about them? So I have a question for you both, if you have time. But if you've got to go, I recognise that we can save it for next week.
You can do one more. Yeah.
Okay, so I told you I'd ask this question earlier, Val, real quick. So something just came up recently in the playtest community for Age of Sigmar, and I'd like to know what you guys think it might be, or how you feel about it. So the Lumineth Realm Lords are out, exciting, they're really fun, ish. But there's a podcast run by one of the playtesters, and he has all the playtesters on now. Ignoring whether or not we think they're an old boys club or they are effectively, a disenfranchising group of elitists.
An English company running an old boys club. Go on.
What? But we'll ignore all of that. One of the criticisms is on the podcast.
Too?
One of the criticisms on the podcast is 2 of the playtesters were talking about the fact that they, while playtesting the book, were all developing lists where they would have advanced knowledge on how to play those lists at the ETC. So at the Age of Sigmar ETC. Yeah. Now, I think that's morally wrong. But my question:
members of Team USA this year, or would have been?
Yeah. That's this is where we were gonna go. Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. Tell me. That's all I'll say so far. I won't load the question anymore. Those are the facts. Tell me what you think.
Yeah,
I think it's garbage.
Hot garbage, right? Yep.
Yeah.
What do other games?
I mean,
go ahead, Pete. Sorry.
So I was just gonna say, like Val mentioned, for the people that don't know, so Team USA this year changed about half their roster, which they do every year, so it's not a thing. But it was 100%. to get more playtesters onto the team that had tried ninth, because Sean Naden was very much aware. And I don't even know if he's tried to hide this. Maybe he has. He's not said anything to me personally, but it's very clear, right? He knew ninth edition was probably coming. It was going to come after WTC happened, or before WTC happened. So the team changes up and you get Reese Robbins, Frankie Giampapa on it. He already had Mike Brandt on the team. He already had Brad Chester on the team. They brought in...
Siegler became a playtester.
So really, like, I think other than Brandon Grant, like the whole team
and the captain and Naden
and Naden, like the whole team are playtesters, of which other than Siegler, they'd all playtested ninth in advance, right? Like, so they had months with the edition already, and I don't think that's cool. I mean, I don't. I know Sean, so I don't begrudge him being given the option to do it. But I don't like it. I don't like the concept of like of this in those particular regards. In small tournaments, GTs, even once you get to the major status, if while I don't like it, I don't think it's that big a deal. We haven't really ever seen a playtester win anything in forever, other than Reese winning Broadside Bash when he was drunk, and that's not exactly a super hyper competitive event anyway. So
go on.
If I could pile on just a little bit.
Oh, yeah, please.
I think actually where I feel cooler about it is international high-level competition, because that's where shit gets gamey in IRL too. Like, you're going to take whatever edge you can get, and it's really got to be up to the organizers to deal with that. That's really where the WTC needs to either say, either needs to work with GW to make sure that there is no informational advantage, i.e. maybe national teams become playtesting hubs. I don't know. Or the WTC needs to say, you can't be a playtester and on a national team. I think that's where I think it's lamer is actually at the GT level, where like you're just a guy from Iowa and you want to travel 4 hours to Civilization and play in a GT, and there's some guy there who has a rules advantage and just wrecks you. I don't know. How often have we seen it happen, though?
Well,
We haven't.
In
40K, sorry. I'm not sure about Sigmar, but in 40K, the playtesters I know of, at least, not many have won anything post playtester, or haven't won very much. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. And like I said, just to reiterate, that's why I said I don't begrudge Sean for being like, I'm going to take as many playtesters as I can, because there's no rule saying I can't. Right? That's just how it is.
Yeah.
That's where WTC needs to say, hey, we don't think you should do that.
And I think, and if you look at how playtesters play, sometimes they do, they do weird stuff. Like Ganyo at the LVO, who, by the way, wrote the Sisters,
Faction Focus
for Sisters of Battle. Well, at LVO, he brought Sisters of Battle. So was he doing that because he thought that was the best army, or was he doing that because he was given the brief on Sisters of Battle and he was playing that army anyway and didn't want to change it up? Or do they also maybe self-handicap so that they're not in positions of conflict because being a playtester is cooler than winning a GT? I don't know.
Well,
Nick Nanavati could have been a playtester. He chose not to be.
I think that's the right decision if you're a competitive player. So some of the key points for Age of Sigmar where different to 40K, and I also would like to just mirror the idea here from Couch Warrior, is that you would want all of the good players to also be playtesters, right? Because you want them to understand how they could break that nuance. But the argument about skill on the tabletop or even list understanding, maybe I don't think it's the same as like the semantics of breaking a rule apart and the semantics of breaking a book apart. I actually think that there might not be a congruent conversation between how good you are and how good you might be at testing something. Like, I don't think that they necessarily correlate.
They aren't mutually exclusive necessarily. There's probably a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram, though.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, absolutely. But you still want players you want the right skill sets to be breaking that. I don't think we've necessarily identified the right skill sets, but I think you're right. There's an overlap on the Venn diagram. But I think where it becomes really shitty is when organizations and groups don't take a forward step on this, and where it becomes really shitty, because I actually did a podcast on this like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, because we in the Sigmar community we have an issue because the lead developer for our game system, a guy called Ben, he played last year, for instance, an army came out that week. And he took it to a major English event, so like a 100-person event called the Sheffield Slaughter, and went 5-0 with an army no one had ever played, never experienced, with rules no one knew. And then to hear the English ETC team say we were writing lists, prepping to take these to a tournament that no one has experience of, that seems like an unnecessarily fair advantage. Whether or not they're able to use that in application, but the fact that they're stating it's their intent is obviously a shitty thing.
So Falcon made a great point in the chat there. I'm just going to reiterate, so it sounds like I said it, which is I think this in transitions like this in particular, where you're going to have, because the rules deadline for WTC is usually somewhere early June, and then the list cutoff is about a month after that. So if there's an edition change, usually right at that moment, which is what happened in 8th, then if you have advanced warning and you know what's up, you're not going to invest your resources in practicing old rules and whatever, and you're going to be ready with more optimized stuff when it comes out. So it's important on an edition change period. However, what I wanted to get to was, in general, especially when you're looking at the WTC, the Europeans have just an alligator advantage, and that is because you're very close to other national teams. They have the Six Nations tournament, which essentially finalized or very close to finalized national teams go and compete against each other in the spring. So they have a much more advanced knowledge of the meta, whereas the non-European contingents, whether it's the Canadians, Americans, guys coming from South America, all over the world now, they don't have insight to that team meta, necessarily. Maybe it's a bit better now with more transparency on results and lists and things, but it's harder for them to judge what's actually going to confront them when they get there. And so I think that's to me the biggest advantage is actually being a European team, rather than because who are English playtesters? I actually don't even know. Like Team England could also be stacked. I don't even know. I know a handful of English playtesters.
Anyway, cool topic, right? Thanks for talking to me both about it, because I think we all want the game to be better, and we all want it to be tested thoroughly. Also, side note for all of the playtesters, none of you have done you might have all done an amazing job. It might have been really shit, and then you've just pushed it to pretty crap quality control. Like, it might have been really awful quality control, then you guys have pushed it over that line to just kind of shitty quality control. Go on.
Before you go, what do other games do? You guys know this better than me. What is Magic the Gathering?
Not allowed to play.
League of Legends?
Yeah.
Not allowed to play.
Not allowed to play. So Magic the Gathering has an R&D team that does all their play testing, and they work for Wizards, and they're not allowed to play the game. And League of Legends is basically the same thing, although a lot of their the benefit to League of Legends compared to Warhammer, Magic, etc., is everything is online. So if they screw up, they can immediately see the data because they've got this a giant data collection tool available to them, and then fix it, right? They can just patch it the next week. They can say, hey guys, we screwed up on Monday. X champion is going to lose all these different abilities and gain these ones instead because we made a mistake, right? So they can change on the fly when they screw up. With Magic, they have an R&D department that's generally all ex-professional players, or mostly ex-professional players that play the game for a living now, and they try to balance. But even then, they kind of screw stuff up. My daughter just woke up, so she's here.
Yeah, the bell is rung.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to both of you. Thank you very much. You guys are great.
That was a good one. Good one, guys.
Good one, guys.
Right.
Yeah, good one, guys.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Listen to the podcast. Thanks for Patreon. Thanks for being live. You guys are great. Au revoir.